Energy intelligence. Powerful thinking for the global energy industry.
The old KPC, or the KPC, current head of KPC, was in charge of Kufbeck before. Now that you've taken over, what is your sort of view for how you're going to take the company forward?
Uh, KOFPAC has been working on a strategy that's been approved by KPC. It was started by my predecessor. It's a set strategy. We will be executing on that strategy. The strategy has a number of major elements. The first among those is that we are going to increase our production from the current about 75,000 BOE a day to 200,000 barrels a day by 2020, maintain that plateau for at least 10 years. That requires a massive investment project to come forward. We're doing that with extreme and full support from KPC, whether it's from my predecessor at KUFPEC, who is now the KPC CEO, or it's the entire KPC board and the management. Also, the Supreme Petroleum Council that sets the overall direction of oil policy in Kuwait. All of those actors are all aligned to move KUFPEC forward. The reason why we want to grow is not because having 200,000 barrels of production is that significant in terms of the overall picture in Kuwait. As you know, KOC produces about 3 million barrels of oil a day. 200,000 is minor comparatively. But the added value we see from this production is if we can get into production and get into projects that have a tieback to Kuwait, we can deliver greater value to our shareholder. It's purely economic returns. Of course, all projects have to meet economic thresholds and hurdle rates. But also, if we can tie those projects back to needs in Kuwait, and I'll mention two of those, for example. As you know, Kuwait has quite significant heavy oil deposits that have not been exploited yet. KOC, our sister company, has been working with international companies to see if they can come up with a model to allow them to exploit those reserves without flouting constitutional prohibitions against foreign ownership of reserves. If we can get into projects that allow technology transfer on heavy oil, for example, with KOC, that would give us an added benefit to Kuwait as a whole, to KPC, our shareholder. Another one, for example, as you know, Kuwait is now importing LNG for power generation needs. The past 5 years, we've been importing on a seasonal basis, mostly during the summer months. Now KPC is launching into a project to see whether they will import LNG on a year-round basis, and build a receiving facility in Kuwait. That also, if we can get into projects where we can own LNG gas resources, if we can own gas resources, the molecules that don't necessarily have to travel to Kuwait, we can swap them, we can do various other things. But if we can own strategically at least 10%, maybe more of the requirements for Kuwait, we can deliver additional value to the shareholder and meet obviously our economic returns. So the strategy is to grow, but to grow with purpose. So one of those is increasing the production to 200,000 barrels of oil a day. Another one is commensurate with that would be growing the reserves base to 650 or so million barrels. Right now our production is 80% gas. We would like to be a less gassy and a more oily company, if you will. So if we can get additional production that will give us exposure on the oil price, that is also better. And paramount with all of this is training and building up the Kuwaiti resource base of employees, experts, geologists, petroleum engineers, what have you. by seconding people into the projects where we are right now, we can cross-reference the information that we're getting there with what's going on at KOC, and we can build knowledge that helps the projects abroad, and at the same time also helps issues that we're facing at KOC. So the idea is to really bring the two sides together, international and domestic in Kuwait, through KUFPEC and through a growth strategy at KUFPEC.
Right. So this was not happening before necessarily, because if we look at KUFPEC's portfolio, it's all around the world. You have many different places. It's in Southeast Asia, it's in the Middle East, it's in
Yes.
In Australia, I think. So previously this wasn't the sort of intention to have KUFPEC bring technology and added value back to Kuwait necessarily. It was a matter of investing money abroad and generating extra cash through.
Originally it was, yes. Originally it was, and it was a race, if you will, to get to a hefty production base, from which then to grow on a strategic basis. That was done, and about 10 years ago, about a decade ago, KUFPEC really faced an existential question. Why was it here? And if it was only an economic return, perhaps it was better to privatize KUFPEC, bring in the private sector, the Kuwaiti public in general. And the idea was at first a minority basis, and then grow that gradually over time. We looked at that strategy again a few years ago and decided that no, for KUFPEC to bring that added value that I've just discussed about strategic value, it needs to remain within the KPC group of companies and grow on that level. The tie-in and the belief that KUFPEC is going to follow through on this strategy really comes from the commitment that KPC has shown to KUFPEC most recently. Earlier this year, the authorized capital of the company was increased sixfold. It is now over $4 billion. At the same time, KUFPEC went out to the to the banks, got a $750 million loan that was many times oversubscribed, and was underwritten by the principal international banks and every single Kuwaiti bank. This was an unrestricted loan, no parent guarantee. It was on a very favorable interest rate, and it reflects how international banks, domestic banks in Kuwait, view KUFPEC's growth story and have believed in it.
Right. Well, I want to go back to the heavy oil thing, because obviously this is an important issue. Getting to the 4 million barrels a day, a component of that is heavy oil, and obviously you mentioned the issues with getting foreign companies in. We know that hasn't worked out over the years. There's been many attempts by Exxon, maybe by others, to be brought in, and that just hasn't worked out. The message is now KOC is going ahead on their own. Now, the question is, are you looking at heavy oil assets specifically, or if they come across your table, you'd be happy to get involved, or is that one of your main sort of targets to go find heavy oil assets now?
I would say we have a preference if given a choice for heavy oil. We will not pass up opportunities while we wait for an opportunity on heavy oil, for example, to materialize. We'd capitalize on those opportunities, but if and when heavy oil opportunities arise that are economic, that make sense, we have the full support of the shareholder that even if we have hit various ceilings in terms of abilities to finance, that is important enough to the shareholder that we'd find ways to capitalize on those opportunities, as well as the conventional ones that may be coming across on a more regular basis.
I mean, obviously you don't have any necessarily technological experience in heavy oil, so what you'd bring to a partnership would be the investment and or would there be other things?
No, we would bring not only an investment to that, we would also bring, typically we would try to second some people into the project, and those would most likely be engineers from KOC who are facing heavy oil issues there, so that they can add to the project and also glean knowledge and transfer know-how and technology. So it works as a two-way street. For example, we are in the Gillamar and Brunello fields offshore Australia, tied into the Wheatstone LNG project that's operated by Chevron. On the upstream, the operator there is Apache. We have been contributing as a non-operator to the development, although we never produced offshore gas within Kuwait. We've done it at KUFPEC and other locations, but
As an operator or
no. But we are doing it as an operator on some onshore fields right now. But as for the offshore, but we have been able to contribute ideas both on the upstream side with Apache, and also on the downstream side of that, the LNG side of it, with Chevron, and they've taken on our ideas, and a number of them have really added significant value to the project. So it's always good to have someone else, even if you are the operator. It's always good to have someone else to let you know if your shoe's untied.
Right. Exactly. I want to go back to that 200,000 barrel of oil equivalent target. It's a big number, and KUFPEC for years has been trying to reach these targets and has been successful sometimes, and sometimes you increase in production, sometimes you fall back a bit. This is a big number. How are you planning to reach that number? I mean, are there parts of the world you're particularly interested in? Do you have a plan? I mean, you have to more than double your current production and replace the declines that you will have on your current field. So it's quite a big task. And I've been looking at KUFPEC for probably 5-8 years, and the production growth has been 10,000-20,000 over that period of time, I think, around this. So how are you going to get?
There's a different level of commitment and dedication, I think, now. Certainly, it's been driven by the fact that my predecessor is now the overall KPC CEO.
So he supports what you're going to do.
He supports it wholeheartedly and is pushing very hard to get it done. At the same time, also we are looking at various options. They will not always be asset acquisitions. Typically, we could do something like a corporate acquisition as well, as and when these opportunities come by. We can create opportunities all along the way by having strategic relationships with various companies, and leveraging certainly the excellent relationships that KPC has with various companies around the world. So the idea right now is to integrate our business strategy with the overall KPC picture. That hasn't been done, it wasn't done before, for various reasons. But for whatever reason, we are moving on that front. So the idea is to tie in our sister companies along with KPC, to use the opportunities that they have, and they could use ours as well, to grow the overall KPC group of companies.
Okay. What about parts of the world that you're looking at specifically?
Parts of the world we're looking at, I mentioned we are as far as Australia in terms of LNG, and Southeast Asia. Half of our production right now, more than half of our production, comes from the Middle East. Most of it comes from Pakistan. It's almost exclusively onshore gas. It is an excellent value creator both for us and for Pakistan. We've been very successful there. So the idea then is to move beyond these focus areas. We are now we're looking quite seriously at North Sea production, whether it's on the UK or the Norwegian continental shelves, and also in North America, Canada and the US principally. And there certainly Canada provides all kinds of opportunities for heavy oil and technology that would be similar to what we would need in Kuwait to develop heavy oil by KOC.
Well, I mean, of course, last year there was a report that came out that KUFPEC had signed a letter of intent somewhere in Canada, $4 billion, and that was maybe 1 year ago. And I was just checking through, and I hadn't seen anything since. Was that something you guys were looking at?
It was something we were looking at. It would have been significant. You mentioned how sometimes KUFPEC doesn't always meet its targets, and a deal like that would have surpassed all of the targets that were set for that year and for the next number of years, I'd say. On top of that, for a number of various reasons, the project never materialized. As you know, all these projects, when you start getting involved in them, there's no certainty as to whether you'd get to a signed deal and then move on from that. So there are plenty of other projects that are available, and our business development team is working day and night on those. They are inundated with available projects. The idea is to try to capture which ones are ones that really have good upside and fairly priced, as opposed to ones that have significant geological risks and are essentially being offloaded by companies that are changing their asset mixtures.
So, I mean, if you're trying to get less gassy, does that mean shale assets in North America are less, shale gas assets in North America are less interesting to you?
No, I think shale assets are interesting because they're shale, and we have no exposure on that. Mm-hmm. The tie-in with Kuwait, again, may be minimal, but for KUFPEC itself as a company, as a standalone company, it would be a very interesting prospect for us to look at those seriously, and we recognize that we've missed the first wave of initial investments in shale in the United States, but it doesn't mean that the second wave, second round, if you will, is closed to us. No, in fact, they may be projects that are significantly de-risked. Of course, that carries with it all kinds of other costs, but they may be projects that are significantly de-risked that would fit within our strategy that we would like to move forward on. We're taking a look at those at this time. This is one of the number of items that I've been concentrating on since I've joined KUFPEC.
Okay. And what's next? What's the next deal we're going to see? Where do you predict that you're?
I don't think I can predict a location. If that's what you're asking, I know that we have a number of plates spinning at the same time. Which one, to mix my metaphors, I guess, which one reaches the finish line first is I can't say yet at this time, but watch this space, I think, is the message.
Okay. And do you know how much money you're planning on spending per year? Do you have an idea of that?
Our budget,
based on this budget,
yes,
yeah.
we have budgets that are approved, obviously, by our shareholder. Our budgets have been designed to give us internally at KUFPEC, without need for external approvals, on an annual basis, what we need to meet those steps to reach 200,000 barrels a day by 2020. So we have the resources, and if we end up with a project that is greater than the budget at this time, that's where we can go back and count on support from KPC to approve those types of projects.
Okay.
So we're not opportunity constrained, nor are we capital constrained at this point. I think it's just finding the right opportunities that have a smart deployment of capital to them.
I mean, would you say politics got in the way before in some of these deals? I mean, if it's not capital and it's not opportunity constrained, it's a matter of
thankfully,
rates of
KUFPEC
return,
has always been working on an international basis without politics.
Well, Canada can be somewhat xenophobic in some ways on certain deals. We saw with the Chinese deal. We saw with others before.
I think a company that is state-owned by Kuwait would be viewed favorably in a number of jurisdictions. We would obviously always make sure we comply completely with the regulations, but the indications that we've gotten certainly from every jurisdiction where we've been interested and targeted our production or our attention has always been very welcoming. Even on the political level, they've always been very welcoming to KOFPEC.
Some of the places where you have assets, one of them is Yemen. You talk about growing the portfolio. Now, the Yemeni government has made it clear they're interested in sort of taking back some of these blocks that you actually have a big stake in, Block 10. They've at least expressed an interest to potentially take these blocks back and make them part of a state-owned oil company. And you know, the Hunt has been looking to sell their block that you're also a shareholder in. Is Yemen still a place where you're interested in investing more, picking up more assets? This doesn't bother you?
Absolutely. Yemen is a place where we've been interested. We, in fact, recently bid on an exploration block in Yemen and won. The Yemeni government announced that already. They're going through the formalities now to formally award the block to us. But we are investing more. It is an exploration block. We do have producing blocks as well. All of them we see significant upside, both for us and for the Yemenis. As the Yemeni government rationalizes how they want to do business over the future, there's always been a strategic relationship with KOFPEC, with Kuwait, where we're confident that we will continue to do business above board, openly and fairly within Yemen.
Okay. And on Pakistan, do you see yourselves growing your footprint?
We are. We also just recently acquired an exploration block in Pakistan. That, along with the Yemeni block, are operated by KOFPEC. So we are moving on to the operatorship side. As I mentioned, we have a significant amount of our production coming from Pakistan, and additional opportunities as they come are extremely welcome. We want to grow our operatorship percentage there. That's one of the prime areas where we think we can add significant value also as an operator, not just as JV partner.
There's not too much exposure to Pakistan to be growing. I mean, if so much of your production is coming from there.
Well, we don't think we'd reach 200,000 barrels a day of production just from Pakistan alone, but we have had very good experiences in Pakistan. Notwithstanding all the turbulent political environments that are surrounding us, the investments in Pakistan have always performed well and have been stable. And that's through very good support from the Pakistani government and a strong operatorship from KOFPEC and our partners.
Now, if you were to say sort of to sum up what KOFPEC is looking for, you seem comfortable with exploration blocks, which not all sort of Middle East sort of NOC outwardly looking companies are comfortable with. You're looking for moderate level of risk, but not very risky. I assume you're not going for deep water necessarily. This isn't necessarily in your portfolio or something that you're targeting. So you're looking for. How would you sort of sum up the type of assets that KOFPEC
in terms of exploration, you can buy existing and producing assets, but once they're producing, obviously the price goes up, and the upside is relatively limited. So essentially, it is an annuity that you're paying for. However, if you take risk on the exploration, that is where you can add a lot of value to the host government, and to your company. Remember, by KOFPEC's name, the Kuwait Foreign Petroleum Exploration Company, it is an exploration company. So while we are targeting production, while we want to increase our production as quickly and efficiently and economically feasibly as we can, we still don't want to abandon the future, and that's going to be in exploration. And we buy into exploration blocks now. Granted, as you know, the exploration successes are sometimes few and far between. But once one of them hits, it really pays for everything else. And we had really successful efforts on that. The Julimar and Brunello fields in Australia, we came in right at the beginning, and that was an exploration block that worked beautifully. We haven't seen first gas on that yet, but it's coming in the next few years. The other production block, the exploration blocks where we are operating now, these are investments for the future of KUFPEC. We're not going to see the returns on those immediately, but we're very confident that those exploration blocks or others like them will deliver great value to our shareholder and obviously to the host countries.
Sheikh Nawaf, thank you very much for your time.
My pleasure.